Imagine waking up and the part of your brain that's responsible for, like, caring is just, well, it's completely unplugged.
Yeah, just totally offline.
Right. You aren't necessarily sad, and you certainly aren't angry. You're just, you're simply out of gas.
Absolutely empty.
You're staring at the ceiling,
Hmm.
the fan is spinning, but your internal engine is totally seized up.
Mm-hmm.
The very idea of getting out of bed, let alone answering an email or like tackling a major project, it feels like you're being asked to free climb Mount Everest.
Without a rope.
Exactly, without a rope.
It's just, I mean, it's a profound, heavy paralysis. And what makes it so incredibly difficult to navigate, honestly, is the isolation.
Oh, the isolation is the worst part.
It really is. Because while you're cemented to that mattress, your perception is that the rest of the world is just sprinting past you at lightning speed.
Right. Everyone else is achieving their goals and functioning perfectly.
Exactly. Which obviously isn't true, but that contrast is brutal.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
And to you, our resident learner listening right now, if you've ever been in that specific flavor of the void, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, they definitely know.
Yeah, we're tackling this mechanism head on today.
Yeah.
Because we got our hands on a text that approaches this not with, like, toxic positivity, but with actual structural logic.
Which is so refreshing, honestly.
So refreshing. It's a piece of source material called The Architecture of Renewed Purpose.
And it really is a fascinating read. The author essentially created this synthesis of what happens when we experience a total collapse of motivation.
Right.
But more importantly, it gives the specific sequential blueprint required to rebuild it from the ground up.
Yeah, it treats human motivation like a physical structure that requires actual engineering.
Yes, rather than just some mystical feeling you have to sit around and wait for.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to extract the core framework from this text, figure out the mechanics of mental stagnation, and
figure out how to navigate it.
right, without getting crushed by the avalanche of self-help information out there. We just want the signal, No noise.
Just the concrete steps.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I need to know, where does the architecture of renewed purpose actually tell us to begin?
Well,
Because, my immediate instinct when I hit a wall is to panic and try to fix literally everything at once.
right, which is the most common human reflex. And it's precisely the instinct the text warns us against right out of the gate.
Really?
Yeah. The very first step outlined in the source is deeply counterintuitive. It basically says you have to stop trying to fix it.
Wait, stop trying to fix it.
Exactly. Before you attempt to formulate some grand, life-altering strategy to get back on track, there's an absolute necessity to simply acknowledge the void.
Acknowledge the void.
Right. You must sit with the difficult emotions of being stuck.
Wow. Which sounds, that sounds incredibly passive on the surface.
Yeah.
And highly uncomfortable.
Oh, it's super uncomfortable. But think about the alternative, right? Fighting the stagnation, pretending you're fine.
Slapping on a fake smile.
Yes. Slapping on that fake smile to force your way through the day requires a massive amount of psychological exertion.
That makes sense.
From a neurological standpoint, you're burning your most precious, limited energy reserves just trying to repress the reality of your own exhaustion.
Oh, man. It makes me think of, okay, imagine someone whose car have completely run out of gas.
Okay.
But instead of admitting the tank is empty and just pulling over, they just keep stomping on the accelerator.
Right, just mashing the pedal.
Getting furiously angry at the dashboard, wondering why the engine is starting to smoke. You're just damaging the machinery at that point.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. You're literally damaging the machinery. And this leads directly into one of the most vital warnings in the text.
Which is?
The source explicitly cautions against what it calls the danger of overwhelming long-term goals during a period of stagnation.
Oh, man. This part of the text hit me hard. It really made me think of this analogy. Imagine you're hiking, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly this incredibly dense, thick fog rolls in. It's so thick you can barely see your own hands. You're completely lost.
Okay, I can picture that.
Now, our natural instinct when we're lost is to strain our eyes. We try to pierce through the fog, desperately looking for the distant horizon or the mountain peak.
Which, in this context, represents our massive 5-year life goals.
Exactly. But you can't see the peak. The fog's just too thick. So by staring into it, you just get dizzy, you get disoriented, and eventually you panic.
Yeah, because you're straining for something that's literally invisible.
Right. So what this text is telling us is stop trying to stare at the horizon. Look down at your own 2 feet instead.
What's fascinating here is the underlying cognitive psychology of why that shift in focus is so critical. The
Yeah.
text isn't just speaking metaphorically, it's actually addressing how our brains allocate resources.
Oh, interesting.
When we're stuck in that fog of hopelessness, our cognitive load is entirely maxed out just trying to survive the day. Long-term planning, visualizing a 5-year trajectory that requires a massive amount of executive function.
Okay, let's pause there and break that down for the listener, because that sounds important.
Sure.
When we say executive function and cognitive load in this specific scenario, what are we actually talking about?
Right. So think of executive function as like the CEO of your brain.
The CEO.
It handles the complex, forward-thinking tasks,
Hmm.
organizing, prioritizing, predicting future outcomes, maintaining optimism, all that high-level stuff.
Got it.
But when you're in a deep slump, that CEO is essentially on an involuntary leave of absence.
Uh-huh.
Your brain is operating on emergency backup power.
So there's nobody steering the ship.
Exactly. So things that usually take zero effort, like deciding what to make for lunch or answering a simple text message,
Oh yeah, those feel impossible.
suddenly they feel like you're defusing a bomb.
Because your working memory and processing power are just totally depleted?
Yes. So, if deciding what to eat for lunch is maxing out your cognitive load, how on earth could you possibly map out a 5-year career transition?
You can't. You just short circuit.
You simply don't have the psychological currency for it. When the text tells you to drop the weight of the big picture, it's not telling you to abandon your dreams forever.
Right. It's just saying, not right now.
Right. It's telling you to stop draining a battery that is already at 1%.
Yeah. By explicitly giving yourself permission to stop worrying about where you'll be in half a decade, you stop the panic.
You shut off the alarm bells.
Exactly.
Right.
You create the microscopic amount of mental breathing room required to just take a single breath in the present moment. Letting go of the horizon is the physical mechanism that allows you to notice your feet again.
And that realization sets the foundation for the entire second phase of the architecture.
Okay, so what happens in phase 2?
Once you've stopped straining your eyes toward the future, the source material completely shifts your gaze to the immediate present. It replaces those massive, overwhelming goals with a mandate to focus on small, manageable, daily actions.
Yeah, the text specifically points to finding a sense of grounding through very minor acts. Things like basic self-care or a tiny act of service for someone else.
And this is where the methodology transitions from passive acceptance into active, physical rebuilding.
Okay, wait. I'm going to push back on this a little bit.
Oh, go for it.
Because when I read this section, my natural skepticism definitely flared up.
I'm sure you weren't the only one.
Right. I mean, making my bed, taking a 10-minute walk. If I'm going through a deep, crushing existential crisis regarding my life's purpose, making my bed feels like a complete and utter waste of time.
It feels like a drop in the bucket.
It feels patronizing.
Yeah.
Like, how does doing the dishes actually move the needle on a severe loss of motivation?
It is a completely natural reaction to feel skeptical about that. When we're facing a massive internal problem, we just naturally assume the solution also has to be massive.
Right. We want a grand fix.
Exactly. The brain says, I need a life-changing epiphany, not a tidy bedroom.
Yes. That is exactly how it feels.
But to understand why these microactions are so potent, we have to look at the other concept the text directly pairs them with.
Which is what?
The idea of reconnecting with our core personal values. These small actions are not meant to be busy work.
So they aren't just distractions to pass the time until we feel better.
Far from it. Think about what happens when you're deeply unmotivated. You don't just lose your energy, you lose your connection to your identity.
Oh, wow.
You look in the mirror and you don't really recognize the person looking back because that person isn't doing any of the things that used to define you.
Wow, that's heavy, but so true.
The text posits that these minor manageable acts are actually low-stakes physical manifestations of your deeply held values. They act as a subtle bridge back to your core identity.
Oh, I see. So the value isn't the tidy bed itself.
No, the value is what the action represents. Perhaps making the bed aligns with a core internal value you hold regarding order, or respecting your personal environment.
Okay, yeah.
Going for a 10-minute walk aligns with the value of bodily autonomy and health. Holding the door for a neighbor aligns with the value of community connection.
So it's about the symbolism.
Exactly. When you execute these tiny behaviors, you're essentially whispering to your own nervous system, look, I am still here. I'm still the person who cares about these things.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because what this source is arguing is that purpose is not some grand abstract thesis that we have to sit in a chair and think our way into.
No, not at all.
Purpose is constructed in the physical world through tiny, values-aligned behaviors. We don't think our way into a new way of acting. We act our way into a new way of thinking.
That is the crux of the text's philosophy right there. And the genius of keeping the actions incredibly small is that it lowers the barrier to entry.
Because when you're depleted, a high barrier will just stop you cold.
Exactly. You do not need a massive surge of divine inspiration to water a dying houseplant. It takes 30 seconds.
Right.
But the physical act of watering that plant proves to your brain that you're still capable of nurturing life. You bypass the broken motivation system entirely and build momentum through undeniable physical proof of your values.
You're laying individual bricks,
Yeah.
one tiny, undeniable fact at a time.
Beautifully put.
But, as I was reading through the next section, I kept thinking about the reality of laying bricks.
Right.
If you're doing heavy masonry work in total isolation, especially when you're already physically and emotionally exhausted, you can collapse.
It's just not sustainable.
No. And the text recognizes this vulnerability. It acknowledges that while these small daily actions build your internal momentum, you absolutely require a robust external structure to keep you upright while you do the heavy lifting.
The source is unequivocal about this. It
Yeah.
states that social connection and professional support are not optional luxuries for the privileged.
They aren't just nice to have.
No, they are, and I'm quoting directly here, vital tools for navigating mental stagnation.
I want to paint a picture for the listener to conceptualize how this works in practice.
I love your analogies. Go for it.
Okay, so imagine yourself as a historic building undergoing major structural renovations. Your foundation is solid. You're fundamentally a capable person, right?
Right.
But the internal framework, like your daily motivation and energy, is heavily damaged and needs to be carefully replaced. You can't just rip out the load-bearing walls and hope the roof stays up. You need external scaffolding.
The steel pipes, the cross braces, the heavy netting bolted to the outside of the masonry.
Yes, exactly. That external scaffolding is your social and professional network. It's your trusted friends, your partner, perhaps therapist or counselor.
Right.
When you're in a fog, they surround you and they hold the structure steady. They bear the external weight of the world for a little bit.
That's such a great way to visualize it.
By taking on some of that load, they provide a safe, secure envelope so that you can do the quiet, meticulous, often painful internal work of replacing those broken beams with your new daily microactions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that external scaffolding is intrinsically linked to another critical mandate from the text,
What's that?
the absolute requirement to foster self-compassion.
Okay, I can practically hear people listening to this rolling their eyes at the term self-compassion.
I know. It gets a bad rap.
It sounds like such a soft therapy speak buzzword. How does the concept of self-compassion actually interact with the scaffolding and the bricks we just talked about?
Well, we have to strip the fluff away from the word self-compassion and look at it mechanically.
Okay.
Because professional and social support, no matter how robust it is practically useless if the individual is internally sabotaging the project.
Oh,
You
interesting.
can have the most expensive scaffolding in the world. You can have the best therapist, the most patient partner, friends who text you every single day. But if your internal dialogue is a constant stream of harsh criticism, if you're constantly telling yourself you're lazy, you're a failure, you're a burden, and you should be further along by now,
The whole thing crumbles.
the building is going to collapse from the inside out, regardless of the steel pipes on the outside.
Wow. The internal sabotage rots the new wood before it can even be installed.
Precisely. From a psychological standpoint, harsh self-criticism actually triggers the brain's threat response.
Really? Just the thoughts.
Yes, it floods your system with cortisol, which increases anxiety, and further shuts down that CEO executive function we talked about earlier.
So it's making you even more paralyzed.
It is a biological doom loop. Self-compassion is the mechanism that stops the threat response.
Okay, so if the daily actions are the new bricks,
Right.
self-compassion is the weatherproofing. It protects the new construction from the acid rain of your own shame.
That is perfectly stated, yes.
That makes perfect sense. It's the internal voice that says, hey, I only managed to answer one single email today. And normally I would punish myself for that, but today I recognize that I'm in a period of heavy recovery and one email is enough.
It neutralizes the shame. Because shame, more than anything else, is the gravity that keeps people pinned to the mattress.
Oh, absolutely.
Shame demands isolation, which rejects the scaffolding. Self-compassion permits vulnerability, which utilizes the scaffolding.
That is so powerful. So let's look at where we are in the architecture now.
Okay.
We've stopped staring at the 5-year horizon. We're focusing on our feet. We're laying new bricks through tiny, values-aligned micro-actions.
Right.
We're leaning on our external scaffolding, and we're weatherproofing the whole project with aggressive self-compassion to keep the shame out.
Which is a huge amount of progress.
It is. But how do we actually start stepping out of the fog? How do we take this stabilized structure and point it in a new direction?
Right, so the source material addresses this transition in its final recommendations. It suggests that the path out of the stagnation involves a deliberate process of experimenting with new interests.
Okay.
This is how you gradually allow a new sense of direction to reveal itself.
All right, another moment of practical reality here, though.
Uh-oh, more pushback.
Just a little. Because experimenting sounds exhausting. When my baseline motivation is still incredibly low, the idea of picking up a new hobby sounds like a high-pressure science project.
I get that.
The brain interprets it as a command, like, go out and find your new life's passion immediately, or you fail.
It can absolutely be interpreted that way, which is why the text insists that this phase can only happen after the self-compassion is firmly in place.
Ah, I see.
The experimentation the text is advocating for is not a high-stakes test. It's not a demand for immediate burning passion or sudden mastery.
So it's not about forcing yourself to become, like, a master watercolor painter by next Tuesday.
Not at all. In fact, if you go out and buy a massive, expensive watercolor set, you are raising the barrier to entry too high and inviting shame if you don't use it.
Right, because then it just sits in the corner mocking you.
Exactly. Experimentation means keeping the stakes on the floor. It means using a cheap pen on a paper napkin for 2 minutes just to see how it feels to draw a line.
Just tiny little tests.
Right. It means walking into a bookstore and just noticing which section your feet naturally wander toward without the pressure of actually buying or reading a book.
You're just casting out tiny, weightless fishing lines to see if anything tugs back.
That's it, exactly.
It's about reintroducing the concept of play. Rather than demanding immediate productivity, you're just testing the waters of your own interests without grading yourself on the outcome.
And this raises an important question, perhaps the most vital question for anyone listening who feels deeply stuck right now.
Okay, what's that?
How are you currently defining your state of stagnation?
What do you mean? Like, how are they labeling the experience?
Yeah. The text offers a profound paradigm shift in its concluding thoughts. It argues that we must ultimately view these low periods as temporary transitions rather than permanent states of being.
Oh, wow.
When you're deep in the fog, the most dangerous, convincing trick your brain plays on you is insisting that the fog is your new permanent reality.
It really does feel that way.
It whispers, "This isn't a slump. This is just who I am now. The old me is dead, and this broken version is forever."
That is the voice of utter hopelessness. Just the absolute dread that your current lack of motivation is your final destination in life.
But the text reframes the slump entirely. A slump is not a life sentence. It is a transition.
A transition.
It's the messy, incredibly uncomfortable, often painful liminal space between the person you used to be and the person you are currently becoming. The architecture is shifting.
So what does this all mean?
Let's summarize it.
Yeah, if we pull all these psychological threads together for you, our learner, here is the actionable blueprint we've extracted from the architecture of renewed purpose. First, you have to acknowledge the void. Stop burning your precious energy trying to fight the reality of your own exhaustion.
Step 2.
Second, shrink your timeline. Stop staring at the terrifying 5-year horizon and focus entirely on your feet, committing to microscopic daily actions that physically reconnect you with your core values.
Excellent. Step 3.
Third, recognize that you cannot renovate a building from the inside without external support. Lean heavily on your social and professional scaffolding and protect the entire project by aggressively weatherproofing your mind against shame using self-compassion.
And the final step.
And finally, experiment with gentle, low-stakes curiosity, knowing that this stagnation is a transition, not your final destination.
It is an incredibly grounding framework, honestly. It removes the crushing pressure of having to magically fix your entire life by tomorrow morning and instead gives you the structural permission to just lay one small, quiet brick at a time.
We really hope this deep dive provided you with the clear, actionable insights you were looking for. There is so much loud, demanding self-help noise out there that just yells at you to hustle harder and wake up earlier.
Yeah, we don't need any more of that.
We really don't. But this text cuts right through that static. It offers a blueprint that actually respects your current neurological and emotional bandwidth.
It honors the physiological reality of burnout rather than simply dismissing it as laziness.
And as we wrap up, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that builds on the mechanics we've just discussed today.
Oh, I like where this is going.
If this source material is right, if these heavy periods of hopelessness and total lack of motivation are truly just temporary transitions, could it be that the total loss of your old drive was actually a necessary step?
Like a biological feature rather than a bug in the system.
Exactly that. Think about the building renovation analogy one last time. You cannot build a stable new structure on top of a rotten sinking base.
You have to tear it down first.
Could it be that this painful, stagnant period you're in right now is actually a required demolition phase? A total clearing out of an old, outdated foundation that was no longer serving you, an absolute painful necessity before the true architecture of your renewed purpose can even begin to be built.
Something to really think about.
Keep looking at your feet. Keep laying those tiny bricks. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.